advantage of the opportunity. But right now is about right now.
The Plan B, Ohio State Buckeyes!
Give everything you got in your heart to this place.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Rushing the Field, presented by Xfinity. He's Joshua Perry, I'm Nicole Auerbach. We've got a ton to get into, wrapping up week 3, getting set for week 4. Joshua, I know that you are often angry about something related to college football. Is there something you need to get off your chest just to start the show?
No, I mean, unless you're like hinting that I said something and I completely forgot. I think I'm fine.
Okay, you're usually mad about something. I mean, you're still mad about tackling. We're still early in the season.
Yeah, I
People
mean,
don't know how to do that.
tackling is again epidemic. It is terrible. We have to work on that. There's nothing that's really just, I have to drive home right now. Maybe over the course of the show, we start talking about some of these coaches. As a matter of fact, you'll get some attitude out of me.
All right, I can already tell. We're going to get some fiery takes later in today's show. We have a lot to get into. Kind of a small news and notes section, mostly because there was news that we were expecting and it didn't quite get to the finish line. So on Wednesday, the NCAA's Division I Administrative Committee, which is a mouthy way to say, like, this is the new group that can like fast track some of the decisions. They got rid of the spring portal window for football, but they did not nail down the one single window. So the proposal was for January 2nd to 11. They're getting feedback from players saying, maybe like it needs to be longer, maybe the dates need to be tweaked a little bit, maybe there needs to be exceptions that allow you to go in the spring, with coaching changes and such. So we're getting closer. We do have one single transfer window. We just don't know when. This was an interesting one because I've spent a lot of time with Big Ten people this week. Big Ten did not support this. They wanted it at the end of the spring window. But there's no real good time to do it. Better to have one than to have two. So it's heading in the direction of early January. We just don't know what dates right now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with this idea that there needs to be one and not two. It is so chaotic the way that the portal windows go right now. And I understand where the Big Ten coaches are coming from, where they're like, we don't like when this window is. We'd like it after spring. I'm kind of there. My biggest issue with the portal window being where it's proposed to be, the end of the football season, is there a team still playing, right? Like that's
there'll be 4 teams still playing. It'll be
and yes, to that point, like maybe doesn't affect everybody, but it's going to affect some people. I think that stinks. And it goes back to this whole, like, we're still kind of doing this. You can call it a charade now at this point of like, these are student athletes. And so the academic calendar really matters. And like, I totally understand that, but it really does suck when it comes to trying to figure out how we're going to do the player movement part of this thing.
It's a great point because they are still enrolled. So you still have to go around semesters, which is why you can't put this window in February, right? Like when everyone is done. I do know that, the Kirby Smarts of the world, they understand it. Like they still support it, even though it could be difficult for them because, 95% of college football will be, or more than that, will be done by then. And it's still better than having the portal open while everyone is still playing, while everyone's got the postseason to go. So we will, again, see exactly how it works. There's no perfect way to do it because of the academic piece and because people's seasons end at different times. It does get a little bit closer to like every pro league where like the free agency period is not while the season is underway,
right?
Which, I think would be a plus. So we'll continue to follow up on that. Again, one single transfer window. We just don't have the dates yet. It will be after the fall season. The other subject for news and notes, it's really just, it's Clemson. So we've talked a lot about like where they are as a program. What it means to have those 2 early losses. This is a team we both had in our, preseason national championship game. So the reason I'm putting this here is because I think it's pretty newsy when Dabo Swinney goes on a rant. So here is what he had to say this week.
If they want me gone, if they tired of winning, they can send me on their way because that's all we've done is win. So if they tired of winning, we've won this league 8 out of the last 10 years. Is that not good? I'm just asking. Is that good? I don't know if that's good or not. To win your league 8 out of 10 years, to go to the playoffs 7 out of 10 years, to be in 4 national championships, win it twice. Yeah, we're a little down right now. Take your shots, but I got a long memory, in case y'all don't know. We'll be all right. We'll bounce back. This is a program built to last, always has been, always will be. And I would just say, if you give up on us if you don't believe in us because we've lost 2 games down to the last straight and you didn't believe in us anyway, so it don't matter. You wasn't all in anyway. If you're all in, you burn the ships, man. There ain't no exit strategy. Like, you're freaking all in. And hey, listen, I mean, if Clemson's tired of winning, they send me on my way, but I'm gonna go somewhere else and coach. I ain't going to the beach. Hell, I'm 55. I got a long way to go. Y'all gonna have to deal with me for a while. I got a long way to go. I'm just getting going. I'm just now good enough to be a head coach.
Couple favorite parts. Only 55. Like, I'm not going to the beach. Enjoyed that. Kind of reminiscence of like the buy our stock speech that we had in the post game a few years back. But this idea that like you're either with us, against us. He has a long memory. I enjoyed. It's just a good Dabo rant. Usually this does light something under Clemson when he does this. But I think it also goes to the overall conversation we've been having about Clemson. It actually doesn't matter that much how you've always been. Like, this
Right.
is about adapting to what you need to do now to be one of the best teams in college football.
No doubt. And I agree with you. Phenomenal rant. I ain't going to the beach. Like, by 55, I mean, he's got the option, I guess. But like, I'd like to be ready to be thinking about the beach by that point. But like, good for him. And the reason why this was intriguing to me is on the episode that we did Saturday night, I had mentioned that there might be this idea that Dabo's just been there too long, right? And it's everything that he said about, if I'm not here, I'm going to go somewhere else and I'm going to win. I actually believe that. But I think he's at a place where he is very comfortable and doesn't want to get any more uncomfortable than he is. And nobody wants to push back on him, and they don't want to make him uncomfortable. And that's where you start to see organizations become stagnant. That's where you start to see that maybe we don't adapt because I don't feel like I have to adapt, and you're not going to push me out anywhere, as he said, right? So like, it's this very interesting thing to me of maybe he should, right? Like, maybe his time there is just done. And it's not to say that he can't coach anymore, but maybe he just needs to be somewhere different to look like the coach that we saw in 2016, 2018.
So I remember when the drop off kind of first happened, right? Like when they weren't making the playoff and everyone's kind of wondering like what's the biggest difference. And again, like he had coordinators,
Yes.
Jeff Scott, Tony Elliott, Brett Venables was with him for like that entire run of like the national championships when they would play Alabama every year. Those guys started to get head coaching opportunities that have been kind of a mixed bag. But that was part of it. And so he was very like adamant on elevating from within. Didn't always work, right? Now you go out and get Garrett Riley. We're like, oh, that's going to fix it. It's kind of fundamental issues of like when you have been good for so long and you have lost some of the people who were around you in the early days. Are you getting told no? Like, are you getting pushback on
Right.
decisions or the way you do things after you've been somewhere for so long? And I remember people saying, again, in that like 2020, 2021 range, that he didn't have a lot of people who would tell him no around him. And that's probably, again, like the stubbornness on the portal or their approach to NIL. Like, you do need people who have different viewpoints who are comfortable bringing them to you if you're going to continue to change and evolve. So that's, I think, part of how Clemson got here too.
No doubt. And I guess that's kind of like the big picture of what I was getting to is it feels like he is comfortable being Dabo, and that's perfectly fine. And being Dabo has won him a lot. But there's also part of this where like you can be Dabo and still evolve, right? Like you can be Dabo and be on the cutting edge. It's what all of the great people do.
Nick
all the
Saban
time.
totally changed in the last part of his career.
No
he
doubt.
was comfortable winning games 9-6, and then all of a sudden, they're winning 41-37, right? Like
all of a sudden, it's
adapted.
like I need some Heisman dudes on offense.
I'm going to hire Lane Kiffin to get there. Like that is the ultimate sign of evolution.
Yeah. So that's what I'm getting at. Like I think that there needs to be something in there for Dabo. A little spice.
we'll see. They have zero wiggle room now. They're going to need some help if they're going to even get to the
Yeah,
ACC championship
for
game.
sure.
So we'll keep tabs on those Tigers. Let's go to the watch back. Our last final thoughts on week 3 that was, because as you mentioned, we do record Saturday night. There are games still in progress. I actually feel like they had kind of turned in the direction that they were going to ultimately go by the time we did record. But I want your final thoughts on Texas A&M's win over Notre Dame. We spent a lot of time talking about the pieces they had added to have an explosive pass game, what we liked about Marcel Reed. Still, this game came down to the final play. Notre Dame now 0-2, but still ranked in the AP poll. Like, there's a lot to go off of. But your final takeaways from that result and kind of where both programs sit.
I mean, I think that we hit a lot of it when we previewed, and it came true, right? Like, we talked about Marcel Reed and how good he is, and he wasn't very efficient in terms of completion percentage, but he was super
Could have had
explosive.
more. He could have had
Right.
more, actually. That's what was crazy.
I mean, the whole thing was ridiculous. So it was fun watching him. And to your point, like, Concepcion and Craver and like those guys on the outside being able to take over the game was huge.
They're dudes.
Flip side of that is, like, I thought Notre Dame's offense looked pretty damn good. Like, we've talked about CJ Carr. I think he's going to be a very good player. He already looks like he's gotten better. They ran the ball much better in this game. But what it comes down to me is a couple of things. Is number one, the margins of the game, right? Like, they had a great special teams play. They also had a critical error on special teams when it gets late in the game. You can't do that. But then to turn around and A&M's able to go down the field, that was kind of the story of the day for Notre Dame's defense. And you and I have talked about this evolution potentially of Notre Dame's defense. And I've come to this conclusion. I don't think they have any dudes up front that scare me, right? Like a scary dude where I say he can wreck the game if we don't account for him when it comes to pass rush. Flip side of that is, I think they're good but not great in the secondary. And one of those things has to be elite. You can either be okay in pass rush but elite secondary, or you can have an elite pass rush and just an okay secondary, but you can't do both. And that's where it's become a problem. And to further that, they kind of doubled down on what they said that they wanted to change up, right? They were like, well, Chris Ash is here, and there were critical moments last year where we got caught holding the bag because we were in man-to-man and it wasn't a great matchup. They ran over 60% of their snaps on defense in some form of man-to-man, either cover 1 or all-out cover 0. You can't do that if you don't have dudes that get home and you don't have dudes that are elite cover guys.
Well, and is that an immediate reaction to what happened against Miami?
It is, because you looked this one up.
Right. But they come out of that and everyone's like, oh, the Chris Ash philosophy, like going into zone, doing more zone, it wasn't working. We need to go back to who Notre Dame is, and that at the core has been a man-to-man defense. So then you do it against the type of team that Chris Ash told us in the spring, it's for the margins. It's for when you have the elite athletes in the perimeter, like the Mario Cravers. So, and again, like, they gave up a lot of points. They still had a chance to win the game. But it was like the defense has been a little bit all over the place about who they actually want to be. And now, Marcus Freeman says he's going to get more involved. Does he take over calling the defense? Like, do they just go back to it even if they don't have an Xavier Scott, or Xavier Watts, in the back end, and some of the guys that helped make that defense one of the best in the country the last few years?
Yeah, I do want to underscore what you just said, because you brought that up to me. We were talking earlier in the week. So against Miami, they ran slightly more cover 3 than they would have a year ago, but they ran more quarters than at pretty much any point last year. And people were talking about Chris Ash. And so they double down and say, we're Notre Dame and we're going to run man-to-man. And to your point, they are in their head. I don't know if Marcus getting involved, I don't know how much that necessarily helps things, because his instinct is probably going to be to do what they just did this past week.
Yep.
I think they have to make a decision on who they want to be, and then they got to get into practice and just rep the hell out of it, just become great at what they want to be. But to me, it feels like when you don't have dudes that can get after the quarterback at an elite level, and your cover guys are good but not great, sitting there in man-to-man, when you have an athletic quarterback like that who can extend plays, that is tough duty in my mind.
So Notre Dame is 0-2. I had them ranked in the AP poll. Did not realize that was going to be as controversial as it was because there were all these people being like, oh my gosh, an 0-2 team shouldn't be there. But they're happy to rank teams that have played nobody and are 3-0.
Right.
So I stand by that. And again, if they're bad and they keep losing, they will fall out. But for now, 4 points combined against 2 top 10 teams. So that's where Notre Dame is. They had to split these games, in my opinion, and they did not. They do have, a good Arkansas team, potentially a good Arkansas team. Boise, USC looks like they're legit this year, at least offensively. So there is some meat on the bone. I don't know if there is enough, but it's not showing a defense and a team that looks like it's going to be capable of winning the next 10 games straight, like last year's team was able to after their loss to Northern Illinois. So we will continue to track that. Interesting game with Purdue, who is a lot better this year. They really like Brian Brown and what they're building, but also really tough time to get Notre Dame coming off of these.
Well, I know. Losses. And I'm sitting here talking about Notre Dame doesn't have guys on their defensive line. And I think Purdue is much better coach, but that offensive line is going to have some trouble.
Correct. They will. And the defensive line will follow Jeremiah Love and company. So they might have a therapeutic day, I think, out there. Any final thoughts on LSU and Florida? So you had, DJ Lagway finishes with 5 interceptions on this day. LSU, one of the lowest offensive performances in terms of total yardage in Brian Kelly's head coaching career. He tees off on a reporter in the post game because the first question's like, what's the state of the offense? What's wrong with it? They win 20-10. Only 13 of those points were from their offense. Garrett Nussmeier is not up to snuff and kind of as advertised this year so far, but they are undefeated. They did beat Florida. Billy Napier's hot seat is as hot as it can get. Any other final takeaways from that one?
Yeah, I mean, just to talk about the LSU offense here for a second, and I guess somebody had reported, and I don't know if you saw that Garrett Nussmeier is dealing with
injury.
Yep. So does that have something to do with it? Sure. Also, if you're good enough to play and be out there, we can't make that many excuses, right? The idea that you can take the football away 5 times in a game and you only score 20 points. One of them was a defensive score. And then I think that the other one that they scored off of was a field goal. You can't, that is unacceptable to me as a guy who played defense. We gave you the ball back so many times, and you just decided that you didn't want to put it in the end zone. I'm pissed. And that's how the reporter felt. And a lot of people probably watching are like, what is going on? So I understand that question. I also understand the BK response to it from the standpoint of always defend your guys, right? You defend
and it's hard
players.
To win games. I get it.
It's hard to win games. You got to celebrate that. The thing I take exception to is everything you do deserves to be analyzed, micro-analyzed, criticized, and you have to be damn near perfect. And there was another person in the media who I respect that was like, oh, you guys are so hard on these coaches. They make $10 million a year. People are hard on me. I don't make that much money. People are hard on the beat reporters. They don't make that much money. So the guy who's making $10 million a year, I'm going to be hard on him, and I'm not going to feel that bad if he's a little bit sensitive about it. This is the world we live in. So that whole part was super insane to me, but whatever.
And he did apologize to the reporter, which I'm not sure Brian Kelly's ever apologized to lashing out on a media member before, but I'm with you completely. First of all, it's a fair question. Maybe it shouldn't be the first question at press conference, but you cannot always control when you get called on. That is what every LSU fan is wondering with this team. What is wrong with our offense? Our defense, we actually feel great about, right? That part has definitely improved. But what is wrong with the offense? Why can't we run the ball? Why isn't Garrett Nussmeier looking like, a potential number 1 pick in the NFL draft? And I think that the reaction from Brian Kelly speaks to the point that he is also frustrated with it.
Yeah.
It hit a nerve. And, you go back and forth and everyone's, he does this. It's kind of like a little, a song and dance. And the reporter, stands their ground and defends it. But that is what those fans are wondering. That is what everyone is wondering, looking at LSU from afar. We can now look differently at that week 1 game against Clemson. Okay. Other people have been able to move the ball on Clemson. Other people have been able to score on Clemson. So it does bring some questions to LSU. And like I said, one of the lowest yardage outputs of Brian Kelly's career. from an offensive standpoint. So there are legitimate questions there.
I will say this last thing on the LSU offense too, like part of this isn't even like the Nussmeier injury. I think for a lot of people is like, oh, maybe that's why the offense. They are the second to worst team in the SEC in running the football.
Correct, but
that's
on
the problem.
On the throwing the ball front, that is where they're saying the torso injury made it hard to practice, like the downfield passing game and get reps on that.
I'm not arguing that.
Agreed.
Like
but
y'all are LSU.
Offense,
you should be able to move people off the ball, create creases, and run that
against anybody. Against everybody.
It doesn't matter who. That's the expectation. You're LSU.
All right, let's get the script into a piece that I had this week up on NBCSports.com. So I'm going to do this a few times throughout the season. I think we'll do the next one at the midseason break. But I'm going to evaluate some of the top quarterbacks in the country and determine how much I trust them. So we're calling it the trust meter. You see Garrett Nussmeier second to last. And this was basically exactly the conversation that I've had about him and the statistics of what he is doing and not doing. But ultimately, so I've got, for those who are not watching on YouTube, John Mateer is my top guy. He's like a 9 out of 10, trusting him. Now, that does not mean I think he is going to survive the season and not get injured. But I'm saying, like, in the game, I know he might be good for a bad interception here or there, but like, love what we're seeing from John Mateer at Oklahoma. Tommy Castellanos, very similar. Although, of course, you know, we need to see a little more from the pass game. They haven't played anybody with the pulse in a few weeks. Carson Beck, Dante Moore, Julian Sand, and Gunnar Stockton, all 7 out of 10. Some of them have played teams with the pulse. Some haven't as much. But these are guys that I feel good about. Gunnar Stockton, that 4th and 6th throw, totally changed how I feel about him. It was very Stetson Bennett-esque. And that was a quarterback that led this team to national championships and did what needed to be done in big moments. Carson Beck playing with a ton of confidence at Miami. They look great. They look like the team to beat in the ACC. Then I've got Bryce Underwood a little bit behind that. Obviously, he lost a game, and Michigan wasn't comfortable really like pushing the ball in that game, really opening the offense against Oklahoma. But man, he's good. He's got potential. He's going to be a great player. Drew Aller has not shown much this year. I remain like, they haven't played. Penn State has not played anybody all that good, right? Who hasn't really tested them, and they've had the slow starts that we've seen from them in years past. He isn't pushing the ball like the attempts. He's not doing very much at all. They're not big throws. Yeah, they're not big throws. Like, but he's, you know, it's like they're not trying, and the running back should be more explosive. There's like a lot going on with Penn State's offense, but he is not pushing the ball at all. He's not trying for even really intermediate and deeper passes. And then obviously Arch Manning, same problem, but on a much higher scale. I mean, like, we're at the point now, if it's not an injury with him, because he's got the weird arm angle still. He's like bouncing the ball to guys that are wide open off screens, like not big passes. I mean, you got to wonder if it's like the yips. Like, I mean, Steve Sarkisian has talked about like it's a mental thing with him because it's not a physical thing, and that's the only outcome. That's right. Like, it kind of feels that way when you're missing guys so open and like you're so in your head on it. But he's obviously been the most disappointing big name quarterback so far this year.
Yeah, no doubt. And like for Arch, had this conversation on the radio the other day, but it's one of those where it's almost like if it is mental, I think you just got to let him play through it, and you got to support him, and you just got to roll with it. Like, just that's your guy. And like, you make a mistake, we'll correct it up on the sideline. I'm not going to get on you. Like, we're not going to get pissed. We just need you to get right. It's a tough spot to be in. I like this list generally. I think that what you did at the bottom was really good because these were like 3 big name guys, and I have been thoroughly unimpressed by all 3 of them to start the season. And to your point about Drew Aller, it's hard for me to judge him. Like, is it just the fact that he is who he is as a player, or is it the fact that he's just not in an offense that's super dynamic around him and they haven't asked him to do a ton, Can
I give you a couple of stats for that?
Sure.
Penn State ranks 83rd in FBS in touchdown rate in the red zone, which speaks to what it feels like to watch them stall out for field goals against inferior competition. Aller is 69th among FBS quarterbacks with passing plays of 20 yards or longer, averaging just 7.1 yards per attempt, down more than a full yard from last season. So the lack of explosiveness or attempts to try to stretch the field is definitely there. And then the fact that they are not scoring touchdowns when you made a big deal about everyone that came back, right? This is a super experienced quarterback, two of the best running backs in the country. They beefed up the receiver room, like they told us they felt really good about it, and you're still stalling out for field goals.
Yeah, it really stinks for him, because it's hard for me to evaluate who he is as a player. And frankly, for all the storylines they talked about guys coming back, really the thing was what they did in the portal to try to get better at wide receiver. I feel like those guys haven't helped to elevate that offense whatsoever. But we're early. We'll wait and see on that. Bryce Underwood. The reason I don't trust him is I don't trust the guys around him. That's my take
You don't
on
trust
him
the
right now.
receivers. Yeah.
I don't trust the offensive line the way I used to in years past too. I think he's the guy with the biggest upside to put the team on his back, right? Like he's one of those type guys. I think Vince Young, like not being dramatic, right? Like Cam Newton-esque when it comes to the skill set and the ability to just take over a game. And I know it was Central Michigan, but like when they gave him the green light, you saw what he was able to do just from a skill set standpoint. And the thing that's going to be the limiter for him is guys around him on the perimeter won't be able to make plays.
The reason, though, that I'm still excited about him and that Michigan fans are going to be excited about him, let's go into the offseason with the top receivers out there in the portal, high school guys.
I would be tampering right now.
Yeah,
I would be tampering right now.
To try to get to play with Bryce Underwood, right? Like that's where you want to be. So next year, that is going to look a lot different. That gets us into our Imagine That segment. I want you to go first. It's time for Imagine That presented by Xfinity. Yours is Bryce Underwood adjacent. So the floor is yours.
All right. So imagine that Dylan Raiola shines in a victory over the University of Michigan.
Ooh.
So this one is like the dual implications of that result where Michigan right now, it feels like is in a spot where they need to win. And it's not that they have to, but you want to give yourself as much margin to be a potential playoff team. Getting a victory over Nebraska would certainly help that. But if you now go on the road 2 times this year and you lose in those games, where are you at mentally? Where are you at as a team? Are you going to be able to recover? I think about that for the Michigan side. The flip side of this is there are some people who felt like Nebraska could be a dark horse to make it into the college football playoff this season. They have a favorable schedule. This is a team under Matt Rule in year 3 where they usually do take a big step as programs do in that year, and a quarterback that a lot of people are very excited about. So I think if specifically you get the narratives going with Dylan Raiola having a big day against the Michigan defense and they get themselves a big win, now there is that momentum to maybe we say, are they a team that belongs in the postseason in the playoffs? So that's my Imagine That.
I really like this pick because this is I was going to say sneaky good game, but I think everyone's aware that it's a really important and good game. Atmosphere is going to be incredible. But what I love about this opportunity for Nebraska is, like you said, with the schedule, this is the game that puts them on the map, that people start to take them seriously because they've looked really good, especially since the opener. The opener was a little sluggish, but this is the benefit of playing Dylan Raiola last year. Going through all the ups and downs of a true freshman quarterback is now you get him as an experienced guy. He's got that chemistry, understands what's happening here. He's a really smart guy. He pays attention, takes notes. Like I've been in those meetings with him in the quarterback room there. So I think this is the like, hey, we're for real. Take us seriously as a playoff contender. Talk about us all year. And by the way, same day, we'll get to this game in a second, that Illinois and Indiana play. Yep. This weekend is really big for the Big Ten to show we are more than just Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Michigan. Like, you got to pay attention to our middle or our second tier, however you want to describe it, because there are a lot of teams in this conference. But that's where Nebraska and Illinois / Indiana did this last year, are trying to make some noise. And I think that that's what is also at stake here is we're going to be talking about a lot more games that matter and a lot more teams that matter than necessarily did before if Nebraska and, let's say, Illinois are able to win this weekend.
It's a great point. It's a really good point about just what we think the pecking order in the depth of the conference will be.
All right. So mine is imagine that Miami easily covers 7.5 points versus Florida. And then the next day, Billy Napier is let go. Now, I'm not rooting for anyone to be fired. I don't do that. But I think that this is now becoming a possibility because we are in that part of Florida's schedule. It's actually just the beginning of it starting to get really brutal. But you're going to have the measuring stick that is Miami, the in-state games, the rivalry games for Billy Napier and company. You're also coming off of a loss to LSU, which again was brutal. 5 interceptions for DJ Lagway, and he's supposed to be like the positive part of this roster and the exciting part. And this is part of why Billy Napier kept his job, was because DJ Lagway wanted to stay and play for him. You're going to be in positions where it's dreadful. It's 3 really bad losses in a row, and floodgates have already opened on the coaching carousel. You already had UCLA and Virginia Tech make changes last Sunday. Doesn't feel that early anymore if other people have gone first. So it feels like this could be, if Billy Napier, especially if they lose in a lopsided fashion, that next Sunday could be the last day for him at Florida.
Yeah, I mean, it would be insane. Just from the standpoint of like, I feel like if you are Virginia Tech or UCLA, there was a part of this where it's like, we got to show that we're to be taken seriously and like, we're just not going to put up with this. And I think Florida has a little bit more leeway from the sense of they'll get a great coach regardless, and everybody's just going to be excited. So pulling the trigger early for them, I don't think is as big of a deal. But the floodgates are open, to your point. So this is what they're going to do.
It doesn't, it's not going to give, it's not like it gives them a leg up to start evaluating candidates.
It's Florida. They're going to get who they like.
It is. And again, with the portal window moving back a little bit, guys can wait a little longer to make those hires. You can get a playoff coach as well, because that'll also be after a lot of the early rounds of the college football playoff. But yeah, Florida can get who they want. This would just be about like, this is just unacceptable and we need to spark and somebody else just kind of running the show week to week.
For sure. But speaking of portal real quick, if they fire Billy, the moment they fire Billy, I am tampering with DJ
Lagway.
Yeah. I'm tampering my ass off.
Yeah. He's gonna have a great second life somewhere, not make these kinds of mistakes. Absolutely. That was Imagine That, presented by Xfinity. Time for the walkthrough as we preview the 3 most interesting games of the weekend to us. I think there are 3 obvious ones. I know we just talked about Michigan, Nebraska, so we'll take them out of the equation for now. I want to start with Texas Tech and Utah. Utes favored by 3 points. This game is going to be played at 10 a.m. local time in Salt Lake City. I think it is going to be the game of the year in the Big 12 in the regular season. I know it's early, but it feels like it's got that potential because these are 2 teams that want to be there in the Big 12 championship race and championship game. Iowa State doesn't play either of these teams in the regular season. So if they go undefeated through Big 12 play, probably the winner of this is the team that they might end up playing. You've got Utah, which just uprooted the offensive coordinator and quarterback from New Mexico, brought him over here, and Devin Dampier has been very, very good. This will be his first big test. Plus, on the Texas Tech side, this is the best team that Cody Campbell, their billionaire donor, can buy. So they went on a spending spree. They tried to get bigger, faster, stronger, more physical, so that they can run through a lot of teams in the Big 12. So I love this game. I think it's going to be awesome. It's at noon on Fox. And I just think it's the first big test for both of these teams that want to be taken very seriously. It also will help tell us, Joshua, I think if the Big 12 is in position to get multiple teams in the college football playoff, because this is our chance to figure out, hey, what does that top tier of this conference look like?
It's a great point. It's one that I wanted to touch on, but this is going to be the one where people are going to look and say, okay, how do we evaluate this conference? Do we think that they are good enough to have multiple teams? I'm intrigued for a number of reasons. And the biggest one is I haven't seen a lot of Texas Tech this year, right? Like not in my film breakdowns.
Yeah,
exactly. There hasn't been a reason to really watch them, but it was one of the stories of the offseason. And they're going up against maybe like the biggest known commodity in the Big 12. And that's Kyle Whittingham. And that is Utah and their culture and what they have done for years. And like, I think that's where I'm going to be able to learn a ton about either one of these teams. But like, you have the biggest thing that and the biggest question mark from the offseason in that conference going head to head.
But also, for as good as Kyle Whittingham's teams and programs have been, they were kind of hamstrung the last few years by, hey, is Cam Rising healthy?
Yeah,
Is he
bad
going to play?
injured
What is
quarterback.
the drop
Yeah,
off without him, right? Now you've got a dude, you brought over Jason Beck with him, right? So you're bringing over that magic, the pairing. And then this is their first big test. So I'm really excited for this one. I think it's going to be big. You want to make a pick in this game? You got a pick?
I'm gonna go with Utah to cover the 3.
I'm also going to go with Utah. But wouldn't hate being surprised on this one, because I think it would be really interesting if Texas Tech suddenly catapult
Totally with you.
themselves to the top of the league. Let's talk about Auburn, Oklahoma. Oklahoma favored by 6.5. It is the Jackson Arnold game. He was the starting quarterback last year for Oklahoma. Did not go well. He got benched at one point. He got the job back because his backup was turning the ball over. But ultimately, like, it was one where he's doing a lot better at his next stop, which is Auburn. Oklahoma's doing a lot better with John Mateer. Like, it kind of worked out well for both of them, but there's that added element of familiarity, emotion, all of that's coming into play as he comes back to Oklahoma with an Auburn team that I think they've been at times one of the big surprises so far this season. I think that the Baylor game was eye-opening, but also just like how much more confident Jackson Arnold is, the way they've used his legs. Like, there's elements of this offense that we did not see very often, if at all, at Oklahoma last year.
Do you think it was shady when Brent Venables said, "I think he's the same guy," when he was asked about Jackson Arnold?
So he gave a few different interesting quotes. So he also didn't, people were like, oh, what do you remember of like when you had that conversation for him to leave? And he's like, I don't want to tell you. So like that was also strange. And then, yeah, he was like asked about his skill set and he said, I think he's the same guy. But then elsewhere, he was more complimentary and talking about how it's worked out well for him at Auburn. But I sort of just wonder if that's to downplay it for his own team, who should be familiar with his skill set, but also then is it he did, there was like a little bit of not a cell phone, but like acknowledgments about all the injuries around him. Like he did say like this is what Jackson Arnold looks like with healthy pieces, healthy offensive line, and like running backs and like a supporting cast. So that was a little bit like we didn't have that for him at Oklahoma. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I'm Jackson Arnold, maybe I take that as something to help me get a little chip on my shoulder. He thinks I'm the same and it wasn't good enough for him. So I'll show him.
Yeah, I would, but it doesn't take much for me to get turned like that. I mean, this game to me is so much about quarterbacks, and it's not about the quarterbacks at the same time, right? Like you had John Mateer at the top of your trust list, and if he goes out there and continues to be able to take the hits that he's taken, but like, creating the run game, throw some of the passes, protect the football, you feel really good about Oklahoma's chances. Flip side of that is like if Jackson Arnold looks like Oklahoma Jackson Arnold, you can already just chalk this one up for Oklahoma. And so I think it's where you start to turn the page. What do you think about the offensive line for Auburn? Because I think they've done a good job this year. What do you think about John Mateer if he has to get in a situation where he needs to drop back? He has not been great under pressure this year, right? Like that's where this game becomes super intriguing to me, is if we get past the headlines with the quarterbacks, now we're looking at an interesting game.
Yeah, and I think too with him, John Mateer is he's shot up to Heisman favorites in all the betting markets. But, if he is unable to run it, like, so he is just banged up enough that he can still play, but he can't do what we've seen him do and kind of create all of these plays on the ground. What does that mean? That goes to the point of like, what happens if he needs to be more in the pocket? What if he needs to actually just throw the ball? A lot of interesting questions. And then you also throw in the chess match of Hugh Freeze, even though Auburn's had quarterback issues the last few years, still known as one of the best offensive minds in college football. Brent Venables, hands-on with the Oklahoma defense. We saw the impact of that against Michigan. What does that chess game look like with one of the best defensive minds in the sport? So this one I'm so excited for. And I think it will have a lot to say about like kind of the middle of the SEC. Whether or not Oklahoma's, we talked about this a lot throughout the offseason and into the season, like their win total may not look that different, although maybe it will. John Mateer stays in the Heisman race and they win some games that maybe they're not supposed to. But, you have a team that's trying to show improvement. And obviously, there's a bit of a hot seat situation, although again, I think people are really high in Oklahoma. We haven't talked about that. So you've got that kind of statement, and then it's kind of the same for Hugh Freeze, showing that they can take a step after a couple rough years. So it's like a really fascinating program matchup of where they are in the SEC right now.
Last thing I'll say is to your point about like how people are going to grade them. I do think there are a lot of folks that are like, "Oh, Oklahoma's a playoff team." I haven't really heard anybody say that. I'm not there.
I don't think so. I think we got to see them again. They got to be able to beat like multiple top tier SEC teams to get there. I think they're a lot better. They're a lot better.
When they beat Michigan, there were a number of analysts who were on that. And I know Vegas isn't always right, but it is interesting that this is a 6.5 point spread for one team who some people said could be a playoff team and another team who nobody is mentioning as a playoff team.
So Vegas might be on the same side as us, you're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
They're in wait and see mode. Okay, let's talk about our game. NBC primetime, Illinois, Indiana. Hoosiers favored by 6.5 points. I've been waiting for this game to get here. Like this has been, I've had this circled since the schedule came out. Certainly since we knew that we were going to get this game, because to me, I've spent an entire offseason of everyone asking me who's going to be this year's Indiana. And Indiana, first of all, does not want anyone to be this year's Indiana because they don't want to drop off. Like they don't want to be a flash in the pan. They just want to be Indiana football. And then Illinois is like, we could be this year's Indiana. Like the schedule sets up for it. They bring back 16 starters from last year's game, and it's all there, right? Like Brett Bielema has the same coordinators and same quarterback that he's had for the last 3 years. He says nobody else in college football has that. They've got some questions. We'll get into like where we think the game could be decided or not, but there's just so much to like about them. They already passed their first test. They go on the road to Duke, and they pull away from them. They get 5 turnovers from the Blue Devils in that game. But there's just like there's so much to like about them and their path that I put them in my playoff bracket at the start of the year. And then you still have Indiana, which I don't think it's a huge drop off. Like they went out in the portal, and I think they got maybe the best pickup at the quarterback position that no one's talking about, Fernando Mendoza. He's been really, really good. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. So they added a lot of pieces in the portal, but they still have some of those core guys that they had a season ago that like set that foundation for a historic season for the Hoosiers. So I love this game. I love the 2 head coaches in this game. They're going to say stuff. They're going to say how they feel. But there's just so much at stake here. And it does speak to the depth in the conference, like that this is a massive game. It's the first ranked on ranked game for Illinois and Indiana in 75 years. Wow. Like, sorry, I'm just like getting really fired up. Like I just cannot wait to get kickoff in this game. I've been so excited for it.
I mean, if people want to try to downplay this matchup, they can go to hell. Because it's huge, right? Like just the implications for either one of the programs. But again, if we're talking about what the postseason could look like and who could be teams that end up in the college football playoff, I think you have to watch this game and you have to take the result very seriously. I'm a big Brett Bielema guy, just from a football standpoint. And I feel similarly about Kurt Signetti, even though I don't know him as well. All this dude does is watch tape. He loves football. He just loves ball. He like everything about the game. And so you mentioned these guys are going to say things too. These dudes are sickos who are probably up all 24 hours of the day preparing right now too. And that 100%. Makes me excited about what we can get into here. Love the quarterback matchup. I know you like both of those guys. I think I like the Illinois defense a little bit better than what I like from the Indiana defense so far. I think Indiana lost a ton off of last year, and they're still trying to figure out exactly what they're going to be on that side of the ball. I think that's probably the edge there. Indiana run game probably take over the Illinois run game right now. So there's this give and take where it feels like they're also very balanced teams.
Yeah, and so Brett Bielema was telling me that like for the last few years, like they're often going after similar guys, and they're in recruiting, like they're sort of building in similar ways. Like there's definitely some stylistic differences, but like the things that they want to do well are similar. So I'm with you because I think Illinois' run game has not been explosive. A little bit surprising because they were like really high on the fact that they had this running back by committee. They got guys that can do different things, but really not a lot of breakout plays for that run game yet. Hank Beatty's been awesome, and I think that's been phenomenal. A huge plus for them because when I was there in fall camp, they were like, we need people to emerge in the pass game. I think now they feel really good about like their top 4 guys, but that he could be that difference maker. We even saw him as a runner. So that's what I feel good about, and I think I probably feel a little bit better about Illinois' pass game because of that, just the continuity with Luke Altmaier. We know he leads college football, leads all of FBS in game-winning or game-tying drives in the final minute of regulation and overtime. So, like,
Dude
we
is
feel
clutch.
good about him in clutch moments.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. And you know, Kurt Signetti brought up that Illinois is doing a lot of different things with their fronts and some of their different schematics because, and he started noticing it with when he was watching them play South Carolina in their bowl game. I talked to Bielema about it, and it's like, well, you adjust based on your personnel. Like, if you think you've got like guys that can get a pass rush, and then you can do stuff differently on the back end. But so you're constantly trying to tweak. So again, I agree with your point. These guys are film junkies. Signetti 100% is. We were there. When were we there? It was in the spring, and he was referring to stuff that like Stanford was doing. And we're like,
which was insane. Like nobody was watching them. Nobody was watching them except for you.
He was watching them, and I think he just watches all plays by everyone. I think he's just like, all right, red zone plays. Let's watch every single person in college football, and so then we can steal stuff. So anyway, I think like both of these coaches told me this game has been circled. They have been like eyeing each other. They knew what was going to be at stake, and Bielema was like, I knew this was going to be ranked on range. Like I knew where we were going to start the season. I knew what Indiana was capable of. So there's so much at stake here. I think Illinois is going to win the game. Because again, I have them in my playoff. I've been so high on them all along. The environment's going to be awesome, by the way. Like Indiana is so pumped that this is, you know, prime time at night game for them. But I think Luke Altmaier, if it comes down to being close, which maybe it isn't, but I just feel like they're more a complete team. And they're kind of ready to take that baton from Indiana as like, okay, we are now, you know, that Big Ten potential playoff team you're going to talk about and maybe argue about all season.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's just I think I have a little bit of a deeper trust in the Illinois personnel at this point in the year. I as I said earlier, I think this game is super balanced just from like a matchup standpoint. So I'm excited because I do think we can get some fireworks and some really fun plays and like good defensive stops with some explosive offense at times. But I'm giving the edge to Illinois in this one as well.
Okay, so we didn't make picks on the Auburn-Oklahoma game because this is one of your underdog picks, Joshua.
Yes, I am going with Auburn as a 6.5-point dog to cover against Oklahoma. Number of reasons. Jackson Arnold, I think he's going to want some revenge. And you mentioned the Brett Venables defense and how troublesome that can be for opposing offenses. Well, here's a guy who got to see that up close. So I think that he's going to be able to adjust in game a little bit better. I mentioned this, but John Mateer under pressure hasn't been great this season. And it's just been the case that a lot of teams haven't been able to put pressure on him. They're other teams are, you know, they're playing from behind. And so Oklahoma basically gets to do whatever they want to do on offense, or like John Mateer just running the ball down their throat. And I think Auburn is a team that can apply pressure and test that offensive line and see how good it is and see if Mateer can make some throws here. So that's my underdog pick.
I am going to take the Sooners to cover in this game. I think they've really improved, and I think that Hugh Freeze entered the season on the hot seat and will stay on it, and it will be games like this that show why. But I will also point out that as we are talking about our underdog picks, we both hit last week because you had Arkansas, who covered +7, and I had Purdue covered +20.5 against USC. So good to us. I'm 2-1 on the season. You're 1-2, but you got your first win. Very proud of you. I'm going to give you two options. And so maybe this is going to mess up my record, but I think my official prediction will be, I will take Maryland +10 at Wisconsin. I am very high on the freshman quarterback. And I think Wisconsin, they have a brutal schedule and they're coming off a tough loss at Alabama, but you know, they're down to the back of quarterback. They've got other injuries. It's just like, I know this could be a get right game for them, but I don't know if they have the personnel. And I think Maryland's coming into this game with a lot of confidence. It feels like a lot of points. Like I was really surprised to see this line for this game. So I think I'm going to take Maryland +10 there, but I'm going to give you a bonus underdog pick. I keep an eye on Tulane.
May I say real quick?
Yeah, you've got a Maryland, Wisconsin take?
No,
go ahead.
Your bonus pick is the one that I really wanted to pick because I am both high on the team that you are picking as the dog, and I do not like the team that they are playing. This is actually, that should be the pick. That's the perfect pick.
Okay, maybe we can share this pick. Okay, we'll share this. This will be a bonus underdog pick. Tulane plus 13.5 at Ole Miss. Okay, to your point, and to my point, because Ole Miss fans, I've gotten a lot of feedback. I have not ranked them this season.
Nor
They're
should
up
you.
to, yeah, they're in the top 15 now somehow, but they have not impressed me. And okay, I will say this. Lane Kiffin can move the ball with any quarterback, right? Like we
Sure.
have learned that. Does not matter who's at the quarterback position. But I'm really high on Tulane. I know that their big wins in the non-conference are Northwestern and Duke, so it doesn't sound like
They beat smart
impressive
kids,
non-conference.
you know?
They beat smart kids, but they crushed Northwestern. Like Jake
They did.
Retzlaff was going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the country at BYU, and you had the honor code and the lawsuit and other stuff happening. And so he's not. So he's at Tulane. But they are going to be between Tulane and USF. Like we are getting a playoff representative out of the American. But Tulane is trying to be that team, and they have looked fantastic. And they dominated the game against Duke. The final score did not reflect like how comfortable they were in that game. And it just seems right for me, you know, with Ole Miss, health questions, quarterback positions with Austin Simmons, kind of unimpressive wins over kind of unimpressive SEC teams that might not be very good in Kentucky and Arkansas. So yeah, I was surprised at how big this line was as well. So we will give you a joint pick as an underdog pick here for Tulane to cover. I don't know if they're going to win, but I feel confident they're going to cover this one.
Yeah, no, I think they'll cover, right? Like to your point, might take the L here. Now, if they win this game, like I think there are narratives that could get out of control. And so I'm wishing for it. I'm wishing for it.
And that would also be 3 Power 4 wins for a team out of the American, which would also be pretty crazy. Okay, before we
back
go,
in the SEC.
Put it back. Yeah, they were a charter member. Before we go, we got to do our WTF on RTF. Very excited about this week's one because typically I love a good mascot, especially like a live mascot that wasn't technically a mascot, really, and is now a mascot. So Bowling Green has a cat called Pudge, who is technically labeled as the morale booster for the team. He's been on the sidelines. He's been at games. He's been lifted up in like a Simba pose during games and put on the video board, and the crowd goes crazy. So he has been credentialed for the game against Louisville this week, which I'm extremely excited for. They're off to a 2-1 start, their best start in over a decade. I think that you obviously need to give a lot of credit to Pudge, who is a 3-year-old exotic short hair Persian cat. And I think my other favorite part of all of this is, okay, we could give some credit to Eddie George. I think that's probably deserved, but I think Eddie would also admit that he loves his cat. Even though he's allergic to cats, he has been seen petting and brushing and hanging out with Pudge because he knows Pudge is good luck. Pudge is my favorite story of the season so far. And I think very different than like other animals we see around college football. Like he has a very specific role for this team, and clearly morale has been boosted.
And just showing up just to show up, just all up in the videos, as they used to say back in the. Anyway, here's my thing: is I texted Eddie and basically was like exactly what you said. Hey, great start, but I'm hearing more about this cat than I'm hearing about you. And he says, yeah, that's how it works. And it's all good too. And I thought it was the best response that you could get. I mean, this is awesome. First off, like Eddie George is somebody who I've gotten over the last couple years who I completely respect for many reasons. But part of it is the way that he coaches and the way he can manage a locker room. These dudes during camp were like, it's a little bit rough out here with the new coach. And they brought in a cat and he was like, let's embrace this. Like, this is what the guys like. We're going to do it. That's what good coaches do. Like, it's a little bit crazy. It's something I like to hate on, but I like what he's doing in terms of his guys want it. So we got to have it.
Again, despite an allergy, he is hanging out with this cat, petting this cat. It's the best. This is what college football is all about. The weird storylines you did not expect to be following. And here we are. We'll follow Pudge into the trip at Louisville this weekend. Reminder, as always, we are now doing these Saturday night Rushing the Field episodes. So we will record them as games are finishing up on Saturday nights. That will be for you Sunday morning if you want to catch up on all the action coming out of the weekend. But other than that, we will be back then, and we will have our midweek show, and we'll have you covered on everything you need to know for college football. He's Joshua Carey. I'm Nicole Auerbach. Thank you for listening to Rushing the Field presented by Xfinity, and we will see you soon.